Most of us grow up believing that our darkness is dangerous. We're taught that anger is bad, that fear is weakness, that sadness is embarrassing. We learn to hide our jealousy, our desires, our wounds, our insecurities, not because they're unnatural, but because someone once told us, this part of you is unacceptable, and so we bury them deep. We learn to smile even when we feel broken. We pretend to be strong even when we feel fragile. We hide our truth behind masks of politeness, productivity, and perfection. We try to become the version of ourselves that others want to see, not the version that actually lives inside us. What we don't realize is that every piece of ourselves we reject becomes part of something Jung called the shadow, the dark container that holds everything we refuse to feel, explore, or accept. The shadow is not evil. It's not a monster. It's simply the parts of your humanity you never learned to love. But because you buried them alive, they didn't disappear. They learned to whisper from the depths. They learned to speak through your reactions, your patterns, your fears, your relationships, your triggers, and your choices. And so your life becomes a dance between who you pretend to be and who you actually are. You feel anger rise out of nowhere. You feel jealousy you hate yourself for. You panic when someone gets close. You shut down when you feel vulnerable. You develop addictions, not to substances, but to distractions, achievements, validation. Everyone thinks the shadow is a nightmare. But the real nightmare is living your whole life without ever meeting yourself. There comes a moment in every human journey, often in crisis, heartbreak, failure, loss, or silence, when the shadow rises to the surface, not to punish you, not to destroy you, but to invite you. To invite you back to yourself, it whispers, come see what you've been avoiding. Come reclaim the parts of you that have been waiting in the dark. But we resist. We fear the discomfort. We fear the truth. We fear the unfamiliar. We fear that if we open the door to our darkness, we will drown in it. But Jung insisted on a profound truth. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Your shadow is not the enemy. Your shadow is the key to understanding your wounds, the key to ending your cycles, the key to discovering your purpose, the key to breaking free. The only way out is through. You aren't meant to escape yourself. You're meant to explore yourself. The parts you fear are not there to destroy you. They are there to guide you toward the life you were always meant to live. A life not governed by fear, but by understanding. Not by shame, but by compassion. Not by repression, but by integration. Your shadow is the path, and the journey begins the moment you stop running. The shadow is often misunderstood. People imagine it as some dark creature hiding inside them. A demon, a villain, a destructive force. But the shadow is simply a psychological container for everything you pushed away. Think of your childhood. There were moments when you cried and someone told you, stop crying, don't be weak. There were moments when you were angry and someone told you, good people don't get angry. There were moments when you were scared and someone said, there's nothing to be afraid of, don't be dramatic. And so you learned, this part of me is not safe to express. Not because it was wrong, but because it made someone uncomfortable, so you hid it. You also hid your sensitivity because it was too much. You hid your creativity because it was impractical. You hid your opinions because they were unwelcome. You hid your sadness because it was inconvenient. You hid your dreams because they were unrealistic. You hid your true nature because it was strange. Every time you hid a part of yourself to survive socially, emotionally, or physically, a piece of you entered the shadow. But here's the critical truth. The shadow contains not only your darkness, but also your light. It contains your suppressed creativity, your muted passion, your buried confidence, your hidden intuition, your stifled voice, your unexpressed potential. The shadow is not a trash bin. It is a storage room for the parts of you that never stopped wanting to be seen. Your shadow might hold the part of you that wants to stand up for yourself, the part that wants to tell the truth, the part that wants to love deeply, the part that wants to be loved. Everything you repress becomes powerful, not because it is dangerous, but because it is starved. Unexpressed emotions intensify. Unacknowledged wounds deepen. Buried truths shout louder. You live in conflict with yourself, a war between who you are allowed to be and who you really are. Whenever someone triggers you, it's not random. Your shadow is signaling, this is where you're wounded. This is where you're hiding. This is where you're incomplete. Every emotional reaction is a message. Every jealousy is a mirror. Every fear is a teacher. Every upset is an invitation. Your shadow speaks through symbolism, dreams, slips of the tongue, irrational feelings, and sudden emotional storms. It's not trying to disrupt your life. It's trying to wake you up. Wake you up to the parts of yourself you abandoned. Wake you up to the parts of yourself that are begging to return. Wake you up to the truth. You cannot love yourself selectively. You must love yourself wholly. And that means bringing the shadow into the light, not to destroy it, but to integrate it. Because the truth is this: you don't fear your shadow because it's dark. You fear it because it's powerful. It holds the version of you that you're terrified to become, the version who is free. When you refuse to face your shadow, it doesn't disappear. It becomes the invisible author of your life. It shows up in your relationships, especially you attract partners who trigger your wounds. You chase people who don't love you back. You fear intimacy yet crave it. You sabotage closeness because vulnerability feels dangerous. You repeat the same heartbreaks because your shadow's trying to show you the same lesson. You don't choose someone who hurts you. Your unconscious does. Your shadow shows up in your reactions. Someone says something small, and suddenly you explode. Not because of the moment, but because it touched an old wound. Your shadow shows up in jealousy, not because you're weak, but because it reflects something unexpressed in you. Your shadow shows up in addiction, not always to substances, but to distraction. You scroll endlessly, work endlessly, entertain endlessly. Anything to avoid the silence where the shadow lives. Your shadow shows up in perfectionism. You strive to be flawless, not out of ambition, but out of fear. You fear being judged. You fear being exposed. You fear being seen. You don't want people to see your shadow, but the more you hide it, the more power it gains. Every suppressed emotion turns into physical tension, stress, anxiety, or emotional numbness. Every unspoken truth turns into resentment. Every unhealed wound turns into repeating pain. Your shadow is like a child locked in a basement. It doesn't want to escape. It wants to be acknowledged. When you ignore the shadow, it whispers. When you suppress it, it cries. When you deny it, it screams. When you completely abandon it, it erupts. That eruption might look like a breakdown, a panic attack, a self-destructive choice, a toxic relationship, a major life crisis, a sense of emptiness that no success can fill. People think the crisis is the problem, but the crisis is the message. It's the shadow saying, you cannot continue living disconnected from yourself. It's time to come home. Facing your shadow does not require violence. It requires compassion. You don't fight the shadow, you listen to it. Ask yourself, what emotion am I avoiding? What truth am I afraid to speak? What wound still hurts? What part of me feels abandoned? What memory still holds pain? What desire feels unsafe? What am I projecting onto others? Shadow work begins the moment you are honest with yourself. This is the work. 1. Name the emotion. Say, I feel angry, not, I shouldn't feel angry. 2. Ask where it comes from. Ask, where did I first learn this feeling was wrong? 3. Observe without judging. Your shadow is not a villain. It is a child who was told it wasn't wanted. 4. Reclaim what you buried. Your confidence, your voice, your sensitivity, your boundaries, your creativity, your desires, your truth. 5. Speak with your shadow. Ask it, what do you want me to know? How can I help you feel safe? What have you been protecting me from? The shadow softens the moment you acknowledge it. This is the miracle. When you sit with your emotions, they stop chasing you. When you name your fears, they shrink. When you feel your sadness, it heals. When you allow your anger, it transforms into clarity. When you accept your darkness, it becomes light. Integration doesn't mean becoming perfect. It means becoming real, becoming whole, becoming someone who no longer fears themselves. The shadow reveals your most honest self, and honesty is freedom. When you integrate the shadow, everything changes. You stop repeating old patterns. You stop attracting the same pain. You stop fighting yourself. You stop living behind masks. You begin to choose instead of react. You begin to love without fear. You begin to speak your truth. You begin to respect your boundaries. You begin to feel fully alive. People think healing means becoming happy all the time, but real healing means becoming whole. It means welcoming every part of yourself. The wise, the wounded, the joyful, the jealous, the brave, the broken, the soft, the angry, the hopeful, the fearful.